Joined now in the studio by the Labour MEP, Claude Moraes, and from Wrexham by the UKIP MEP, Steven Woolfe. Claude Moraes, let me come to you first. Are you comfortable in doing a deal like this with Turkey?
No. And that it would work as well is going to be a really moot point. I mean, this one for one, it's not really been tried around the world. Perhaps Australia, Trevor probably know. Pushbacks, and then you take one. It's got overtones of this kind of thing. It's going to be extremely difficult. But if I tell you where it's coming from genuine crisis. I mean, are you going to leave this humanitarian situation like this? And secondly, I was speaking to the Greek immigration minister on Wednesday, and he said, you know, Turkey will be part of a solution of sorts. So you have to try something. And the final solution to this, if you like, is not going to...
Not the best phrase to use.
I just realised...
That's all right, I understand.
A compassionate and organised solution to this in the end...
A long-term solution.
A compassionate and organised solution to this in the end will involve Turkey in some way. And I think it is more realistic now, because you're dealing with... Turkey not getting much here. I mean, this visa liberalisation has got 72 conditions on it. Accession is as far away as it ever was.
Do you think it is? Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, Cyprus is saying no to the talks. France is going to block it. Every parliament has to say yes to it. I mean, accession is not even on the cards. So that kind of spectre is just, not there. Let
me go to Steven Woolfe. Even if the European Union didn't exist, Europe would be facing a migrant crisis, and in some collective way it would have to deal with that, and it would have to deal with Turkey, wouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely, Andrew, and I've always said on this show and in others that this crisis is a combination of many factors. It's not just the war that's happening in Syria, but it was the regime change that we had in Libya, it's the impacts in Afghanistan and Iraq, and of course the economic costs of having trade between the European Union and other countries in Africa, which puts tariffs on those countries very excessively. And so the only solution to this would be a global solution run by the United Nations and not placing the pressure solely on the EU. And that is the big thing that's been missing from the whole of this, from this crisis from the start. The UN, the international community, hasn't come together. They've all left it on the hands of the EU. And there are potential solutions to this. Take, for example, at the moment, Russia has managed to help cleanse ISIS from the northern part of Syria. There is a real opportunity now for the world to come together and have a safe zone in that area to allow Syrians to come back and create some sort of Marshall Plan for rebuilding that country and let those people have their lives back again.
Could I just suggest to you, though, that if it's been difficult enough to get a concerted and collective action among 28 European members, all in the same union and all in the same continent, that getting the kind of UN reaction that you're calling for on the scale that would be required would be, to put it politely, unprecedented and unlikely.
Well, I don't think it would be unprecedented and unlikely, not like this potential deal, which is really reckless, foolish and potentially dangerous for the long term for Europe as a continent. But if you look at the way that they dealt with the Kurdish area in northern Iraq, when we had to deal with Saddam Hussein, the world community came together and created a safe zone for the Kurdish people.
Well, that was basically the British and the Royal Marines that did that. That was John Major as Prime Minister. He did that with American air cover.
Well, absolutely, but why can't...
the UN.
No, but I'm suggesting here that on that occasion we came to a very positive, swift solution to enable the Kurds to live freely without the threatened pressure that came from Saddam Hussein. And here we have a great opportunity with ISIL being depleted.
Well, is it? Where's the evidence that ISIL's been depleted? Well, any evidence I've seen suggests that the Russians haven't been attacking Islamic State at all.
Well, I think there is other evidence to suggest that they actually have managed to cleanse ISIL from their area. They've given strength to Assad to be able to try and look after that area himself and create some security. But the key point here is that the Russians have backed down to the extent where they're saying there should be the talks in Geneva. And this is a great opportunity, Andrew. Isn't it a great opportunity for the world to come together and say, let's create this positive framework?
Let me put that to Claude Moraes, then I'm going to bring in our guests and again we'll have a discussion among the four of you. What's your reaction? The UN may be a better vehicle for doing this?
False dichotomy, and it's just pitching the EU against the UN. The UN are providing the tents that you see in Turkey, where there are almost 3 million refugees. Jordan and Lebanon burst to the seams with the UN operating there. The UN is there. America could take more, the Canadians could take more, and they are going to take more. The international community has to take more Syrians, no question of that. But when these countries, Jordan, Lebanon, Turkey, became saturated, they were always going to come to Europe. Whether there was a European Union or not, that was going to happen. And this seems to be conveniently forgotten by those who want to just talk about the EU in this sense. So the question is now, what do you do about the refugee crisis? Turkey will be one part of the solution, but today at least there's some realism in taking it down a notch and realising that it won't just be about Turkey, which was what happened in the original discussion.
There may be, Rosa, some kind of deal spatchcocked together today. There always is at European summits. But then I would suggest there's a fair chance, I put it no higher than that it could start to unravel very quickly. And that could be the backdrop to our referendum campaign, and it could well be unhelpful to those who wish us to remain in the European Union.
Well, I think it goes both ways, doesn't it? Because the images that happen with each sort of refugee surge that we see coming again in the spring and the summer are sort of directly opposed to each other. On the one hand, you have this sort of streams of people coming in and the concerns that our friend we saw in Cardiff talked about what that means for national countries. But then you also seen these horrific sites of children dying. The little boy washed up on the beach last year, I think, changed the whole nature of the debate last summer.
But it also suggested, did it not, that the European Union had not stepped up to the crease to deal with this huge problem. And we're now many, many months after it, and it's still struggling to find a way forward.
Yeah, the EU is useless, but I think what we were talking about is the...
I should point out that other people think it's not useless.
but it's not having the EU worse. I think probably just about I would argue that it would be worse, because what this crisis shows is that you need to come together. And as you say, the deal that's being stitched together today isn't going to be a perfect deal. It's not even going to be a particularly good deal. But it means that finally politicians and countries are coming together to try and get a grip of this.
Trevor, are these ongoing developments, the backdrop, if I can put it that way, to the referendum campaign, is this helpful to the Leave side?
Yes, and I think that the campaign is going in the direction of the Leave side anyway. I agree with Rosa, as you might think I would, that the European Union is absolutely hopeless, and it has demonstrated this on almost every major issue that it's had to deal with, whether it's the single currency or the European Constitution or the rest of it. But on immigration and border control, it's known, as you say, that this was happening for at least 18 months, maybe longer, and it's done absolutely nothing concrete to deal with the problem at the beginning, and it's now completely out of control. I don't think there's anything that can be done that's going to work with Turkey. I think that will almost certainly unravel almost as fast as it's cobbled together. And I think that at the end it will be Turkey that will be the spectre at the referendum day vote, when I think people will say we've had enough of this.
Claude Morris, come to you, and then I'll go back to Mr. Woolfe. Is there not at least a possibility that any kind of agreement like this will be illegal under not just UN, under the Geneva Convention, but under European human rights laws? My understanding is that it is illegal to treat migrants as a group. That every migrant has to be treated, and particularly asylum seekers, as individuals on individual cases.
So in this new deal, Andrew, they have inserted, and you'll see it in the text, individual analysis of each case, which is an extraordinary thing. That means people will be processed in Greece. And
which they're incapable of doing.
It's going to be extremely difficult, but there will be resources put into it. I mean, it's happened. It's happened with the former Yugoslavia in the 1990s. It has happened, and it can happen, and Europe can do it. And I disagree with Trevor, because I think on Turkey as a spectre for the Leave campaign, as people get the facts, and as Trevor knows, France across the political spectrum doesn't want Turkey in. Cyprus doesn't even want the talks to start. Visa liberalisation has been blocked by 72 chapters. Once people get the facts, they'll realise Turkey is not coming in.
But if they don't get visa liberalisation...
Maybe not the spectre that it once was.
If they don't get it, and I understand, I'm told they've met half the 72 conditions, but another half... If they don't get that, why would they agree?
Interesting. think what is happening is there are too many problems in Turkey, and they realise that they are only going to be one strand. I think Rosa was right, one strand of a bigger solution. And I think what is now happening is everyone's getting more realistic. Turkey's just not going to get that much anymore because it's got a lot of its own troubles, and the EU is being much more realistic in this deal than it was in the original one.
Steven Woolfe, just briefly on this. If there was to be some kind of UN deal overall, which you've advocating on our programme today, would it be right for Britain to take a bigger share than we plan to do of Syria, particularly Syrian migrants, as part of a UN deal?
Well, I'm not sure whether we can again try to pick out how many numbers that we deal. I think the right decision was to take them, those who are genuine asylum seekers, from the camps.
But would we take more?
Well, again, this isn't the issue about the numbers that you can take or how you distribute them, because that could be an endless thing. Because the point that you look at this migration crisis, Andrew, is you know from Germany, over 90% of those who have gone into Germany are actually economic migrants. When the summer process starts, you're all talking about Greece, but once again, you're going to have to watch coming from Libya to Italy. There'll be those who say that we can't get into Greece. We'll try and find the other routes, and you see them coming through Russia at the moment into the northern countries of Sweden and Denmark and the like up there. So this process is going to be bigger, and Greece is saying 50,000 would potentially come each month for the next year.
Just before we go, Mr. Woolfe, we had a member of your party, the lead candidate on the South Wales Central list for the for the Welsh Assemblies. He's talked about migrants in a particular road, I think in Cardiff, having hygiene problems. He said that the head of the Labour Party in Cardiff Council is brain dead. There are some people in UKIP in Wales calling for his deselection. What's your position?
Well, it's not for me to actually make the deselection process. That will be the NEC, and I understand that they will do so. But what I will say is I have asked for the transcript of what this man has said from the journalist, and if the journalist has extrapolated his views to make it a gory story, then I think the journalist has some repercussions. But if he
you can watch him on the Daily Politics today on iPlayer.
Yeah, and I will do that. But if he has also said, in the terms of the language, that you blame migrants or those who come to this country for all the ills of this country, if there is a tone of any form of racism in there whatsoever, I will be demanding that the NEC takes the strongest terms possible to deal with this man. And not only that, Andrew, I would ask those who've examined him and approved him that they too should be reprimanded by the NEC, because there is no room in this party for anyone, and I make that emphatically, there is no room in this party going forward for anyone who makes any racist, xenophobic or other types of comments. This is not the way forward for this party in the future.
Steven Woolfe in Wales and Claude Moraes with us in London. Thank you both for joining us.